Twice upon a time, the hopes and fears of all the years. The Doctor and Archie went into the Doctor's TARDIS. They took off into the time vortex. As he worked the controls, he was terribly aware of the Captain standing nearby, keeping his courage up, watching with calm interest rather than allowing himself to think too much. The Doctor looked to the scanner, where the First Doctor was standing beside his own console, looking rather petulant. "Your TARDIS is slave to mine," said the Doctor. "You'll follow directly behind me." "Oh, so I'll get turned along behind like some sort of..." The Doctor flipped the mute switch as he continued. He dared to look at the Captain. "Are you alright?" "Oh, fine," said Archie, which the Doctor thought was the most English thing he had ever heard. "Yes, absolutely. Just thinking, I told the wife I'd be home for Christmas." He had a fixed smile on his face, determined not to be anything less than stoic. "It's funny how things work out." The Doctor managed a sympathetic smile. He hated this. He hated his hypocrisy at hating this, hated that he was being selfish, hated that he had made it his duty to do this, hated himself, hated time and the world, hated... Wait, what had the man just said? Hope suddenly blossomed into the Doctor's mind. Real hope. The thought he'd just had was like seeing a light in the darkness. A gift that had been given to him, to save him, right at the end. Perhaps there was a clever trick still to be played, even if it was even possible. He hit a control. The wrong control. Then he stepped away from the console, walked aside, as if he'd just done that by accident. Why would the universe allow this? No, no. It was impossible. It wouldn't be allowed. Would it? The sound of hope came to a terrible place on what had been a terrible day. It came twice. It sang to itself with a wheezing, groaning sound. 2 police boxes appeared side by side on the battlefield. After a moment the doors opened, and the Doctors, the Glass Woman, and the Captain stepped out onto the frozen, in all senses, mud of the First World War trenches. The Captain looked around, as if to make sure they brought him to the right place, then adjusted his tie and nodded. "I suppose..." He stopped himself, but then it seemed that he had no choice but to continue. "I suppose there's absolutely no way out of this, is there?" The Doctor did not want to give the man false hope. He desperately wanted to look to the Glass Woman, to make sure she wasn't reacting, to make sure that she wasn't aware that something was amiss. She might intercede at any moment. He could not let his words trip him up now. "I'm sorry, Captain. Time has to resume its course. For all of us. This is where you're supposed to be. You won't even remember the interruption." "I see." The Captain nodded. "Jolly good. Just checking." The Doctor looked to the First Doctor. This must be agony for him. He had an angry look on his face, but it was anger directed inwards, helpless. He knew that history couldn't be changed, not one line. But still, doing this was just the sort of thing a war doctor might do. He put a comforting hand on the Captain's arm. "I regret, Captain, that the universe genuinely fails to be a fairy tale, The crater, he noted, came complete with handsome German soldier frozen in time on the other side, still pointing his gun. The Captain found his place, made some calculation about precisely what his posture should be, his gun aimed directly at his opposite number, then looked stiffly up at the Doctor and the Glass Woman. "Right," he said. "Thank you. Thank you all. You've all been most gracious in the unfortunate circumstances." The Doctor smiled down at the gloriously enormous euphemism. "Homo sapiens, eh? Can't live with them, can't die without them." "I'm only sorry we can't help you more," said the First Doctor. "When time resumes, you will not remember this," said the Glass Woman to the Captain, with all the kindness she could muster. At least she wasn't doing this as Bill. "A perception filter will also render us invisible." "Yes," noted the Captain with some sang-froid. "One imagines some of those words were attached to actual meanings of some sort." "I wouldn't worry about it," said the Doctor, half hoping his tone conveyed something more than his words did. but only to his target audience. Of course it didn't. "One thing you could possibly do for me, if you were very kind." "Oh, anything," said the first doctor. "Name it, young man." "My family. Perhaps you could look in on them from time to time." "We should be delighted," said the first doctor, perhaps in the vague hope he'd remember enough about this to actually follow through. The old man looked to him, and the doctor realised his former self knew full well that he was hoping to save the doctor's life with another obligation. "Well, we shall see about that." The old codger turned back to the soldier. "What's that name?" "Lethbridge Stewart," said the captain. "I'm Captain Archibald Hamish Lethbridge Stewart." "Oh." The doctor almost laughed. Almost. He could feel the universe tying one of its intricate knots around him, but it was a knot for him to grab hold of and climb to safety, or a knot around his neck. Funny thing, destiny. Funny thing, hope. To be offered the name of his dearest friend, Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, to be meeting his ancestor, his grandfather, at any moment like this, right at the end. Possibly, still possibly for them both. This was the poetic connection, this particular grandfather paradox, the meaning beyond all physics that had brought Archie to the spot where doctors came to die. "I shall make it my business," said the first doctor, looking meaningfully at his older self again. But no, old man, no. He had already made it his business. He had looked after the man's descendants across generations. "You can trust him on that, Captain Lethbridge Stewart," he said greatly. "Thank you," said Archie. "Thank you so much." He took a breath and then nodded. "I believe I am now ready." The glass woman didn't even move. She just sparkled. And then suddenly, the sound and fury of the battlefield was upon them once more. Time had rushed in to claim its own. There was even the sound of a descending shell right overhead. The doctor looked at Archie and saw the bravery on the man's face vanish in a moment, to be replaced by sudden mortal fear. The man opposite him jerked into life too. The men were pointing their pistols at each other, more tense every moment, about to fire. The noise of the descending shell turned into the dull thump of a dud landing nearby. The sound made both men react, made them both twitch, their fingers tightening on the triggers. The doctor made himself watch. What happened next would tell him if he had made a terrible error, his last error, or if there was still hope. Archie woke, as if from a dream, as if from some sort of terrible fugue. A sudden sound had jerked him back to reality, he realised. A dud had landed nearby. For a moment there, it had seemed like his fear had been replaced with wonderful adventures that he could not now grasp or recall. It was as if something beyond the horrors, a fairy tale, had soothed his brow just for a moment. "Right," he muttered. "Where were we? Oh yes. There was the gun. There was the German soldier, pointing at him. 'Bitte,' said the German. 'Das ist verrückt. Ich will den nicht wegtun.' "Code, isn't it?" said Archie in response. He wished desperately that the man would either kill him or not kill him. "It's about to get colder, I suppose, for one of us." Because he wasn't going to be saved, was he? Somehow he knew that he was about to die. Was meant to die. The gun was shuddering so much in the German's hand. He was going to save himself, wasn't he? He was going to save himself by killing Archie. The first doctor turned away. "I'm sorry, I cannot be witness to this." The doctor grabbed his arm. He hoped his tone would convey the hope that he felt. And damn it, that it was now too late for the glass woman to do anything, even if she caught on. "Watch." "We know what's going to happen," said the first doctor, helplessly wondering. "No, we know what's supposed to happen." He let a little smile creep onto his face. "When has that ever stopped us? By the way, on the way over, I may have interfered with your temporal mechanics, just a little." "What have you done?" whispered the first doctor. "Nothing much. Just moved everything forward about an hour. This is 1914. And now he allowed himself a grin in the face of death. "This is Christmas." And faintly on the wind, he actually heard it, the sound he'd been waiting for. Yes! And a sudden lack of sound with it that allowed it. The big guns had stopped firing. The thunder had ceased while they were talking. The sound that had started while he had caught the glass woman's attention was the sound of the greatest hope of all. It was the sound of enemies singing together. Archie wondered what this new dream might be, a dream in which the war had suddenly ceased. It was a bit like that dream, that fairy tale that he couldn't quite remember. The German opposite him had clearly heard it too. He was looking around, lowering his gun. Oh dear God, had peace been declared? Was the war over, just in time? Or was it just... I say, Archie called to the German. Is that singing? Is that Christmas carols? Yes, it was. It was Silent Night. You know, I could swear it's coming from... Because yes, the songs were the same, but from different directions in different languages. From both sides. The doctor stepped forward, looking down into the crater, at where the German soldier had lowered his weapon, at where Archie, unaware of the doctor, was starting, shivering, to clamber to his feet. He looked up to the fields beyond, to where the songs rang across the miles. If I've got my timings right, and I clearly had, we should be right at the beginning. Christmas armistice, shouted the doctor, when they all just stopped fighting, when everybody just stopped, because it was Christmas. Christmas 1914, when the miracle is about to happen. All around them, soldiers from both sides were climbing from their trenches, advancing into no man's land, waving white flags and offering bottles, starting to meet in the middle, to shake hands, to embrace and start to laugh in sheer giddy relief. The captain hauled himself out of the crater and stood beside the doctor, oblivious, calling out to the soldiers at both sides and pointing down into the crater. Excuse me, hello, wounded man here. He took out his whistle and started blowing on it. Wounded man! Stretcher parties from both sides started to make their way over. It never happened again, said the doctor. Not in any war, anywhere. But for a few hours, one Christmas day, a very long time ago, everybody just put down their weapons and started to sing. And he recalled his own battlefield of only a few hours ago. A battle it felt like he had never left. Everybody just stopped. Everyone was just kind. Archie had helped the German soldier out of the crater and was aiding him now to stumble towards his comrades, as if the whole deliberate slaughter were a road accident everyone was helping with. What a fantasy. What a fairy tale. Lives saved by a story, by songs. You've saved him, chuckled the first doctor, at once delighted for Archie and tickled by the doctor's naughtiness. Both of them, said the doctor. Never hurts. A couple fewer dead people on the battlefield. The first doctor suddenly became serious, stood straightener, seemed to be looking at him now with a new respect. So that's what it means, he said. To be a doctor of war. And he smiled in appreciation of what his future self was capable of. It was a generous interpretation. But wasn't today about generous interpretations? The doctor smiled at his old self. You were right, you know. The universe genuinely fails to be a fairy tale. He put an arm around the old boy, and pleasingly he accepted it. But that's where we come in. And around them, as the glass woman looked on, the battlefield became a celebration.